welcome to Ingentive's session today, which is titled AI and Empowerment in Public Sector. And first of all, a little bit of housekeeping for those on the live session. If you want to interact with us through the presentation, we have options to chat with some of my colleagues in the chat channel. So if there's anything in particular that you want to come back to or ask a specific question around, then please do interact with us in there. We're going to be running probably for about 35-40 minutes, and then we'll kind of take the questions towards the end. And really this is about not just organisations that are in the public sector, but also providing those organisations with the control of it, handing back a bit of control, I suppose, to the users and the teams within public sector organisations. And there will be elements of this session that are going to address government, some around education, some around healthcare, but it's a kind of a public sector wide audience that we've got today. And the aim of it really is to give you a bit more of a update in terms of where we've seen as a Microsoft partner issues in the sector around application management and the dawn of AI for Microsoft. We are, as you can see on screen, a Microsoft partner. It's all we do. It's our main partnership out there. So in terms of our solutions, we always have an element of Microsoft in there. So we speak to a lot of organizations about how the technology, the innovations that Microsoft have put together over the last year or two, because this is all fairly new tech, have what they have to offer public sector. And there may be some new ideas here, there may be some new concepts, there may be some building on existing concepts. But crucially, you'll be really pleased to know, as a Microsoft partner, and as you're joining us today, we've got some really great potential partnership opportunities for you towards the end of the session, where we can maybe work together under a kind of a Microsoft funded project to try and learn even more and to try and push forward with these innovative solutions. So keep listening for the action points towards the end, because they could be really beneficial for you and have quite a low barrier of entry in terms of needing to fund them yourselves. So just a quick run through. My name's Andy Sayer. I'm the Business Development Director here at Ingentive. I've been here pretty much a year and a week. And our organisation, as I said before, is a Microsoft specific partner, and I work with a lot of private sector clients, but a specialism in working with public sector. I was a consultant in public sector back in the day, and now I've been in sales for about 15 years with the Microsoft channel, and very familiar with the kind of challenges that people like yourselves are facing every day in terms of processes and efficiencies. A very, very quick bit about who we are at the start, because we may well be a new name for all of you. So we'll just quickly give you that background, then focus a little bit on the kind of challenges that we see speaking to public sector clients, and maybe anticipating some problems that they might be facing over the kind of months and years ahead when it comes to process management, the use of AI, and those two things in combination. Then the empowering solutions bit, I suppose, of the presentation. So the kind of things that we've partnered with our clients to do using AI and Power Platform already, some more ideas about how that can be implemented, and maybe the conversation started within your organization, because you may be at different kind of timelines with your thoughts on this. It might be day one and your first interaction with this kind of technology, or you might already have a few pockets of it already within your organization. So either way, we can maybe go into some interesting examples for you there. Then one of our clients, Gordon Hay from East Renfrewshire Council, who owns all things Microsoft there and has been working with us on a number of different projects over the last couple of years, has kindly joined us to give his view on the importance of starting this journey with governance, compliance, and what we call a centre of excellence. So that will be a really valuable insight into what not just local and regional government are doing, but also any kind of public sector organisation needs to bear in mind when starting this journey. And then, as I said at the end, a couple of calls of action, all of which will hopefully continue the conversation and allow Ingentive to maybe speak to you a bit more about your plans, your roadmap, how we can help further. As I say, some interesting options using Microsoft money to try and take us forward and continue those conversations from today. So very, very brief overview of our background. We began life, I suppose, about 5 years ago under the banner of Akari, who you may have heard of, was a successful partner of Microsoft, built a great relationship, as you can see at the bottom, lots of awards and lots of accreditations. Really kind of Teams apps and Power Platform, probably the two things they were most kind of famous for, and did a lot of work with a lot of small, medium and enterprise clients to start them on the journey to building applications in-house and also exploiting innovative technology within the Microsoft stack. They were acquired in about just over a year ago by Wolf Partners, who are a investment group that were basically formed off the back of some other industry specialists. And since that point, we've done two things. We've also acquired a software coding house who specialise in all things development code, .NET, Java, etc. We also have a name change and a rebranding, which is Ingentive, based on ingenious and inventive. So innovation and cutting edge technology within the Microsoft stack is very much what we do. And since then, we've been very successful in both the private and public sector. We have a huge amount of accreditations within space. One of the largest, or one of the most accredited partners in the UK. And I think a crucial kind of differentiation is definitely our people. We have people in delivery who've worked for people like Computer Centre, EY, other members of the Big Four consulting teams, as well as other Microsoft partners. So we've got a vast amount of experience to help you, not just in the Microsoft suite, but also from a public sector standpoint. And we're still very much kind of proudly co-Scottish based. Akari was born out of Glasgow. We now still have an Edinburgh base north of the border, but we also have a head office in London, where I am in a very small office of right now. So very briefly, what do we do? Well, AI is at the center of everything, as you will probably see on every Microsoft post on LinkedIn and from their own website at the moment. It's absolutely core to their roadmaps as an organization, as with most technology organizations, to be honest. And within that, we have kind of four pillars. The one of which we'll probably talk about most today is around the digital app and innovation. So transforming applications, transforming processes, modernizing often. We'll definitely come back to that later on. And giving public sector organizations the opportunity to move faster, to be innovative without the traditional kind of handbrake on, if you like. And taking forward the opportunities that some of this technology brings to you. We've seen a lot of people kind of come to us and say, we're not ready for AI. This session hopefully is going to challenge that a little bit. We also have a cloud practice who cover all things Azure and would also manage things like storage and migration. Security is kind of what, as part of whatever project we do is the awareness that security is part of that, both in data and infrastructure, and also a modern work team who manage the nuts and bolts of M365. So brings back the Teams side of things, the collaboration side of the Microsoft stack. So there's a conversation probably to be had with Ingentive anywhere across Microsoft, but for obviously today we're going to be focusing on the innovation and the AI side of things. And a shameless plug for people we've worked with in the past. I'm not going to again dwell on this, and we will make this deck available to everybody after the session as well, so that you can go into a bit more detail and see if there's anyone you know in there. But ultimately, big spread of private and public sector. Lots of really good logos that you'll be aware of or have worked with before, and some case studies out there to go into more detail should we need to in the future. So, what is digital transformation in the public sector? Well, I suppose digital transformation for me is probably more digital evolution these days. Digital transformation kind of insinuates that you do it once, and it'd be nice if it was just once, but unfortunately I was talking about digital transformation for customers about 10 years ago, and we're still talking about it now. So I think digital evolution is probably the more appropriate term. And I suppose the challenges within a public sector organisation is that within these three pillars, reducing friction is important, although tricky to do with so many disparate systems and a state kind of sprawl over many years. And minimising risk is obviously a key consideration, both from a compliance perspective and from a kind of an individual perspective. But all that being done whilst increasing pace kind of feels a bit kind of counterintuitive, because I don't think anybody would disagree that moving quickly in the public sector with solutions is a challenge. It needs a lot more governance, it needs a lot more approvals, it needs a lot more planning to get things through to a delivery stage. And so being able to manage that pace and have it at a sensible level is often the challenge. And a lot of what we talk about today is going to be about trying to get something done quickly, but minimizing risk at the same time, but also giving you some efficiencies and some integrations that maybe seem impossible at the moment because of the scale of that change. So really, it's going to be all about giving you tactical fixes for kind of perennial problems, and getting that done in weeks rather than months or years. And addressing that, again, coming back to our conversations that we have with our clients, the kind of things that we get talked to about, all the time. And I'll call out a few of these as kind of the most regular ones. Budget and time and resource. Sure, budgets are tighter than they've ever been in most organisations. We always are looking for ways to make things more efficient, to enable people to spend the time that they need to with their students or their citizens or their patients. Much more focus on that than admin. And a lot of AI and a lot of Copilot and a lot of Power Platform is about doing just that and making sure that those admin processes are as quick as possible whilst maintaining audit trails and compliance. I'd probably also call out the rising service expectations here. That is critical, because the expectation now from anybody is that things are mobile, things are responsive, things are in apps, you don't need to speak to people to get things done, and the interaction stays proactive, and the service is top quality. It doesn't matter if you're in a university, a hospital, or within a local government institution. So that is also critical, and a lot of what we talk about today will increase that level of interaction with the public. And even things like, something that we care about a lot is accessibility, and that's now not really an optional thought. It's an essential thought of most builds of application, and also for internal users to be able to use things in an accessible way. So all of these challenges will probably, no doubt, kind of come across your desk on a regular basis, but we think that empowering via AI and Power Platform gives you some answers to a lot of these common problems. And in summary, I suppose, the difficulty to start a project, the need to kind of maybe bring external people into the problem to fix them, the risk of maybe moving from an old legacy application and bringing it into the 21st century. They're all painfully familiar scenarios, but with some of the technology we have at our disposal within Ingentive and Microsoft, we are allowing people to start building very simple solutions that can fix familiar and painful problems. We are allowing that to be then reported on to demonstrate the return on investment and to make sure that the right things are being done whilst maintaining security of data and obeying GDPR wherever possible. And the AI conversation as well about the way that things like chatbots, and we'll see a really live example of that shortly, can take the strain on call centres and on admin staff and allow them to get on with the more customer facing, more student facing, more patient facing kind of activities. And when there is a kind of a broken process or a struggling process in your organization, there's classically three options that we see our organizations historically take. And luckily, this, what we're going to suggest today, this is an area of really an alternative solution. So they will either take an application that's out there, or a CRM system, or an ERP accounting software system, and they'll try to fit the process that they're trying to manage into that. Now, that is very much square peg round hole scenario. It got inherent risks. You've got the opportunity here to kind of bend it out of shape so that when updates and upgrades come along, it doesn't work. There's a kind of a perennial reinvestment to make sure it still works in the new version. And it just makes things very difficult when platforms change. It can be unnecessarily expensive to do. And just to make sure that everything's still in the same place, it's not worth often that bending process. You can go shopping for a third-party solution, but the sprawl that then of kind of shadow IT and large numbers of unmanaged applications and different departments doing similar things but with different applications is a real risk. They can also be obviously annually very expensive to run, especially if there's some sort of on a service model, and obviously there's a support contract that usually goes with that as well. So it mounts up a lot of admin on top of admin for the sake of going external. And probably the unfortunate truth is that a lot of organisations won't do anything, and they'll stay with their old approach. They'll stay with their Access database that they're happy with. They'll stay with their Excel spreadsheet that is 150 columns long. And what we're saying today really is there's a really strong alternative using modern technology within Microsoft and also with the new Copilot AI solutions. And at that point, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Charlie, who is our lead solution consultant within Ingentive, to talk a little bit about what the opportunity is using Power Platform and Copilot.
Thank you, Andy. So this slide has some various statistics from Gartner and IDC. But the key message here is that there's a huge demand in any organization for coming up with creative solutions to fixing particular problems. But the supply side of that is severely constrained in terms of going out, getting budget, getting access to technical skills to develop these software solutions. So if we just move on. So with the Power Platform and the Copilot and AI pieces, we're able to do things that traditional software development cycles and traditional off-the-shelf solutions simply can't fill a specific niche need that people have inside their solutions. So Microsoft have created the Power Platform and now Copilot and AI to start allowing more people in an organization than just pure developers to exist within the ecosystem that you've got brought in with you. So you have the native integration with Teams and SharePoint, and a lot of the licensing is also included as part of your existing investment in the Microsoft solution. So on the next slide, you can see we can start to, if you want to just build this out a moment. So at the bottom, we have Microsoft's cloud solutions, which are in Azure. The challenge is that to use those cloud solutions, you need to have a very technical cohort of developers to be able to get in and work with those. And that's a finite resource. And Microsoft realized that that was a finite resource. So what they've created is this Power Platform that sits on top of and abstracts you away from those technical elements and allows more business-focused development to use things like Power Apps and Power Pages and Power Automate to create automations, data flows, and apps without the need to get involved in the lower end technical details. So you can start to move faster, move quicker, and solve problems that are actually faced inside the business. Just the capabilities exist as part of the Power Platform, but they also exist as part of your Microsoft 365 environment. So it may be that you want to start setting up automations and creating apps in Teams that solve specific business problems. So the next slide shows a classic example of one of those business problems. If you just move on one, Annie. So this is an example of a Power App for booking desks. It's a small problem, but it's going to deliver value and benefit to people. But building an app like this with a traditional development cycle is simply not going to be cost effective. So now with the Canvas apps and the Power Apps, we're able to actually start to respond quickly and easily to these small scale, single point of use examples. The next example is of a solution around managing events. So this was for a university. They were running a number of seminars, and they needed to be able to track what sessions they were running, speakers, who was attending, where were they having success in booking venues. So we created a simple app for them to be able to do that. Very low cost, very fast to market, easy to build and iterate upon. So it's all about putting users in control. So this is a form around that sessions and that agenda. So it's looking at who's attending, how are we attending, and how are we managing that. It means then that we can report off the back of that and start to actually show value, put our focus and effort in where it's needed and working out what is actually going to be of value. The examples I've shown so far have been very internal facing, but with Power Pages, we can take that data and we can expose it through a secure portal. So this is an example where people needed external parties to be able to claim expenses. So we were able to create a portal. Volunteers could go and register on that portal, and when they needed to claim expenses, they could process those expenses that then flowed straight back into finance and approvals processes so that the external parties got paid quicker and had a better overall user experience. So end to end, the process was faster and the experience was better, ensuring better engagement with their clients. So very whistle-stop tour. I'll hand over to Andy for another example of how we've used Power Apps at a higher education client.
Thanks, Charlie. I think also, again, worth repeating and worth kind of confirming that a lot of these solutions, which I suppose were, again, are point solutions, tactical solutions that will fix a problem and kind of knock an issue off of a backlog, they're often done in collaboration with the organisation, very much driven by their need. And then it's quite an agile process to then design it and launch it from there. But it's important to say again that with most of Power Platform, because it is low code and no code in terms of its building process, some organizations have now taken these kind of builds in-house, and they've certainly taken the support of them in-house, so that if there were changes needed, tweaks and relabels and logo changes and whatever they might be, they're more than capable of doing that without the need for any Microsoft specialist to come and help them. And we have found that to be obviously one of the main drivers, that it can still be owned within the organization. It doesn't need a further person on the supplier list. Once it's in and once it's adding value, it's purely about continuing that return on investment and saving time. The other example here is of a university client that has used. It's a university client, but it's a universal problem. They had a problem where they had very limited vulnerability tracking, i.e., what devices were open to threat, whether that be viruses, hacking, all sorts of kind of under the radar activity that could happen to either students, staff, partners even. It needed to have some kind of solution rather than just logging things retrospectively in Excel. And from a client's compliance perspective, and this is a big area of AI and Power Platform, is the justification for investing in this area is often governance and compliance. And if these processes aren't there, then organizations like yourselves will get hit by fines in audits, and potentially very large ones at that. So by creating these kind of low barrier of entry applications that take in some cases days to put together, we're actually risk managing quite a lot of issues across the organization. They're using data feeds from live threats as they happen. So it is real-time linking. And what they can do is they can now predict which devices are going to have problems with which potential threat. And that's done by having agents on the machines and having that talk to the app. So this is a great way of preventing problems and also remediating them quickly to try and save money, and also address the compliance issue as well. And there's lots of future phases planned for this, live dashboards, as we can see there, alert managements, and even automated resolutions where if a patch maybe would fix the problem, that would launch up as an automated process at the other end. So these apps can, we've seen them managing expenses. We've seen some other really kind of simple use cases for them. But this one, whilst still simple and whilst still something that can be done very quickly, is addressing a very complicated problem through that kind of same simple start method. So in summary, kind of taking that kind of technology and applying it to public sector specifically, there are some very core wins straight out of the gate by doing these kind of projects. It is giving staff the opportunity to deliver fantastic value because of the speed of deployment, because of the amount that you can get done in a short space of time, and also in terms of the any remediations or any changes in the future. These are very quick tweaks rather than, again, painful sub projects. It helps massively with employee engagement. We're going to see an example in a second of a AI and Power Platform bot, which is fantastic for doing this. Being able to get the information that you need, either from an app or a bot, an FAQ process, means that new workers, they're not looking around your website, they're not asking other people in the department, they're not frantically searching around a complex content management system for the answer to their issue. They can just ask a simple in plain English question of a bot, and it will come back with the most relevant answer. And we'll see that exact example shortly. And it also means that connecting with citizens is equally, in a similar way, I suppose, is equally possible. The apps will enable data input in a responsive way. They could use their own mobile device, or they could use a their computer as well, but ultimately being able to interact with key data, being able to pass securely documents backwards and forwards via these portals. These are projects that traditionally have taken months to get approved and then to deliver. What we're talking about now is the case in point there, that expenses app that you saw an example of earlier on. We're talking maybe 2 or 3 weeks to build something like that and have it tested and have it out in the wide world. So the flexibility that this is giving us is tremendous. And I suppose it's always an issue with budget. It's the number one priority of probably most of the people on the call, is to make sure that they're within budget, but they're still as efficient as they can possibly be. We've already seen some examples of where we can modernise applications and make them easier to use, therefore saving time, but also be able to justify that and see some dashboards that show that's time being saved and is maybe being invested elsewhere. And also, I suppose the justification of licensing is important as well, because obviously Microsoft, it's less expensive maybe than a private company, but it's still a sizable amount of money, especially if you're a large enterprise public sector organization. And things like Copilot, they're additional licenses, they're things that you need to justify the spend on. And a recent study came out that the $30 or so per user per month Copilot fee, how much time should you be looking to save off the back of that investment? And the answer that we got in our research was about 18 minutes. So if you can save 18 minutes a week using this kind of technology, then it is paying for your license, and anything above that is obviously a return on investment straight away. Now, obviously, Copilot doesn't have to be used by everyone across the organization, but obviously people that could really benefit from these kind of tools would be a very small amount of time saved equals a lot of potential gains in terms of efficiency and in terms of service back to the end users. And some examples, further examples of other things we've seen in the sector. Now, not to say you could well have these applications already or something very similar. They might sit within your intranet, or they might be a third-party tool, or they might be part of your existing kind of wider system. But I think importantly, they can be standalone, but also they can interact with those existing tools. So if those existing tools are bulky, painful, leave requests is a good example of this. If you've got an HR platform that is a pain to have to manage, then why not surface the data in a Power App and make it a really simple approval process to put your leave in and have it approved. But all the time, the data is obviously still dropping back into the core HR tool. So being able to have it as a front end for complicated systems that are maybe not user friendly and not taken up and used as much as they should be is a way of further getting value from these kind of tools. Yeah, and site inspections, asset management, checking in and checking out of equipment. You're probably already thinking there are probably processes that could be managed via this method that this would save an enormous amount of time on. And just to further emphasize that point, there are, I think, over 1,000 custom connectors now for this tool. So this is by no means a standalone set of empowerment tools managing processes. And it's just the screens that you create are what you see. There are integrations across the board from everything from other telephony systems to other content management tools to some big enterprise size apps and case management systems, time management systems, etc., etc. And maybe see a couple of examples of that in a second as well. Then a bit more on the AI side of things. So AI, how's it being used? I think Gartner's very recent survey around map your AI use cases. It singled out public sector as an opportunity, and I think the reason for that is that a lot of organisations have come to us saying, well, we're not ready for AI. it needs a lot of readiness. There needs to be some work done before we're ready to start talking about it. It's a worry for us. We're worried about data being surfaced where it shouldn't. This is nothing new really for Microsoft. There's been other cases where they've had things like Delve, and certainly with Teams, where there's been a security concern about agents and bots going behind the scenes and surfacing information that maybe some users shouldn't have access to, and that creates quite a lot of kind of change management worry, quite understandably, and also a hesitancy to go ahead and use innovative technology. So what is it that we can do? How can we save money using it? If there are some quick wins we can take, where can we save time? Where can we save money? But the key messaging here is that it's not future state. It's not something that you can wait 3 or 4 years before you start entering into some detailed research into. It's now, and also we have lots of our partners, universities in particular, who say, well, we don't want a situation where our students are going to come in and know more about this kind of technology than we do. There is a risk of things being written in ChatGPT and not quite the work of the person that's involved. So I think it is the time to start talking about this kind of stuff, and it really is the time to get some quick benefit from it. So what is it that we've done for other organizations that will work now and give you something back? What is Copilot, and how does Copilot help you? And also, we still realize that there will still be some readiness to be done. There will be some areas of Copilot that you might need some discussions with a supplier about, or Microsoft about, to make sure that you are secure and you have done your homework around compliance. So get the quick wins, but also more kind of project discussion maybe around maybe the more complicated areas of Copilot. So the answer to this rhetorical question is probably more than you think. So Copilot as a strategy is very much the name, and we've been mentioning it throughout today. But there are Copilots in a number of different areas of Microsoft technology. From one that you've possibly all seen already when you're using the Bing search engine, which is a Copilot tool for kind of plain English searches, right through to being able to create avatars of yourself online through Designer, based on a plain English request. And then there are different elements of it throughout a lot of the most commonly used areas of Microsoft. What we're going to focus on now is just an example using the bottom two, Copilot Studio, Custom Copilot. So these are part of Power Platform, the AI elements of Power Platform. And what it does is it effectively enables you to take Copilot's plain English searches and plain English suggestions and take that and point it and connect to your existing systems. So an example here, using Copilot Studio, we've picked on a university domain here. It's asking us which website we'd like to plug into, obviously public facing information so that we can connect to it. And once we've done that, a virtual assistant is launched. And that virtual assistant is essentially has just plugged into the website and has just done a massively quick index of all of the information that's available on there. Now, if you were to ask a question of Google, for example, at this point, asking it a question about how do I get in touch with student services, for example, that could well come back with 20, 30, 40 different opportunities to follow up and go down a few rabbit holes on. But what AI does fantastically well, of course, is it will laser sight into the most appropriate response. So in this particular example, we will ask a couple of different questions. I can happily share, this is a demo that anybody can do, by the way, so I can happily share this afterwards so that you can do it with your own websites. But essentially, if I ask a very simple question like, how do I get in touch with student services, you're immediately responded to by the bot, who has gone away, checked that index out, used various prompts to come back with a specific email link, and there's also a web link as well for more information about current students. So it's come back with what it deems to be the most appropriate answer. And the same thing was then done using when are the term dates. Here we go. Here's the most important information, and here's a link as well. And that could so easily be set up to be contact this person, phone this number, all of these kind of things. And if you think back to the onboarding example I gave you earlier on, if you're taking a call from a member of the public, you avoid that kind of, I'll be back with you in a second. I'm just going to go and ask someone, find out, or I'm just going to go around our system and try and frantically work out what's going on. No, let's use a bot to do that. Let's find that out straight away. So this doesn't have to necessarily be publicly facing. It could also be plugged into your intranet. It could be plugged into your case management system. It could be plugged into any kind of help desk.
Andy,
sorry.
Can I just interrupt and just do a quick time check for you?
Sure. Yeah. No, we're just completing off here. So yeah, no problem at all. So just to get, within that theme, a couple of examples for universities. Tribal or SITS is a connector, as is things like HR tools, Workday, time management tools like Monday, FAQs, Zendesk, ServiceNow, also with the issue management and kind of technical management, and then things like Blackboard for timetabling. So any of these can be plugged into Copilot Studio, and suddenly you've got the ability to do a bot search across the data and get to the information that you need as quickly as possible. And they're just some of the examples that could be done and got lots of value from moving forward. So just going into the final part of this presentation and actually kind of taking these kind of ideas and bringing them to life, I suppose. And what do we do? How do we go on the journey? What's the next step in trying to work out what the art of the possible is? So Ingentive partner with Microsoft, and we often will fund or co-fund initial projects. And that might be a number of different first steps. There's a few different first steps we'll go through briefly, but the best example of probably a good way to start on the journey is with our colleague from East Renfrewshire Council, who is Gordon Hay, who has taken one of these in partnership with Ingentive, just to talk a little bit about what the Centre of Excellence is and why it's important to start with, because it effectively gives you a set of rules about building these kind of apps and doing this kind of new innovative way of building processes. And he's gone through this process and therefore is going to join us now to kind of go through that.
Hi everyone, thanks Andy. I've been working in the public sector for almost 2 decades now, and as Andy said earlier on, most of that has been in transformation of some sort. Transformation is not new for us. Now I think one of the biggest things we experience is all the stuff we see is really good and it's really cool, and one of the things I've written down as Andy was going through there was compliance, and it's how do we have demonstrable compliance that the apps we are building, the information we've got is in our control. How do we govern that information and that data? So having a centre of excellence is really key on that for us. So what it's given us is the ability to know what we've got and how we're using it. One of the things I find out is, from a Microsoft point of view, is they fallout stuff all the time. And what I mean by that is you come in on a Monday and something's switched on. You may have had some advance notice, sometimes not. A good example of that was the flows that were going out to external information. The Centre of Excellence allowed us to capture that, to see where it was going and what data was actually leaving our tenancy, and put controls in place to demonstrate that we knew what was happening. So that's really key for us as well. Again, there's a piece here around about the training and adoption. So actually all of these tools are great, but none of us were born knowing how to do Power Platform or how to use Teams. So building a training and adoption and making sure that we don't just teach the tools, we build a culture that allows us to use them to the way they're supposed to be used. If you could go on to the next slide for me, Andy. Thank you. Again, expertise and knowledge sharing, having a group of people looking at this, and it's not just IT folk, and it's not just governance folk, it's people from across the entire business. They should all be having visibility on their data, their information, and actually what can they take from it? How do we solve their challenges? How do we make their services better for them? And again, making sure we apply our lessons learned and celebrate success. We've got some great low code apps running, and we really do make sure we celebrate and tell people about what we've got. Again, coming back to the demonstrable compliance, setting kind of best practice and SOPs, really key, so that everybody knows, yes, I want to do stuff, but here are the rule sets that you have to be within for that type of data. As a public sector, we handle different types of data. We have different regulations based on that data. So again, it's having those rules up front, so to allow people to use the Power Platform to their best capability and still staying within the rules. And again, just as Andy kind of said, there are funded workshops available. And again, one of the benefits of a centre of excellence is a group of people for us. When one of these workshops comes along, I don't have to look through the business. I don't have to try to identify people. What I've got is there's a group of people that I know would attend that workshop and get value from that event, or who are willing to learn to make sure that they've got that knowledge and expertise on the Power Platform. I'll hand you back over to Andy.
Thanks, Gordon. And one of those types of workshop, which Gordon's actually about to do, interestingly, is one with Copilot. So as a potential takeaway for today, Copilot, Art of the Possible, is really the launch point of, okay, well, this sounds really interesting. You know, that demo was cool. I like that. What can we do? Now, the best thing to do with us at the moment is probably to run through some use cases for how you might want to use it and some systems you might want to connect to. And also us explaining how a lot of our partners and Microsoft partners have used Copilot over its first few weeks. So, you know, Teams auto summarizing the contents of a meeting, for example, or using Word to summarize the end of a document so that you've got a kind of a first draft of a piece of writing that you can then tailor to meet your needs. And so it's about 70–80% done. Those kind of quick wins are definitely things that are being used straight away out in the sector. So by working with one of our consultants to collect those use cases and talk to you about how things have been done, and critically how to best adopt the technology and have users come on the journey of, okay, well, I can start using Copilot for this, I could use Copilot for that, and the best way of communicating that kind of message and how to get them ready for it is very much what that workshop is all about. And we are one of the very few people who are on Microsoft's Jumpstart program in Europe for Copilot. So out of the back of that, those sessions are usually funded. They are maybe half a day or so in length. They can be done on site. They can be done in a hybrid Teams on site mode, or they can be done fully on Teams. So to Gordon's point, bringing people across, experts from around the business who have got an interest in this, and I've got some stakeholding in it, I'd invite you to give us a shout after the session, and we will happily look to set this up for you. And it doesn't have to just be Copilot either, and the AI side of things. You know, we do this all the time for Power Platform, where we will again take people along, bring them to a session, remote or otherwise, and talk about how Power Platform might be able to fix some of those challenges that we've been speaking about throughout, whether they're known apps, whether they're brand new requirements, whether they're things that are just broken and unsupported. You know, these are things we want to talk to you about. And then what we do from there is that we would kind of rank them. You know, what are the, you know, out of those 10 things that we identified as problems, which ones are going to be the quickest to put out a pilot of? Which are the ones that are going to have the most business benefit to you as an organization? Which are the ones that are going to be able to be launched and live in the fastest time? And by doing that, we will identify maybe what the 1 or 2 best concepts for pilots are, and then work to create some sort of storyboard or pilot product to enable you to then sell that internally. So it's all about supporting your business case, and building that together. And also from that workshop, we basically create a backlog of ideas for you, which would be a deliverable of a list of priorities that you might want to look at over the weeks and months ahead. So it's really kind of getting you running with this idea and trying to build up the momentum for you, to try and be your advocate with the rest of the organization. So just a few minutes left, and we do want to take some questions if there are any. So what are the 3 things that we'd like you to take away from today? We've spoken already about funded workshops, whether that be AI usage through Copilot creation, whether that's building your own Copilots or just learning more about Copilot and its different forms and how it might affect your organization and how it might aid your organization. Those are valuable sessions where we love to kind of educate and also understand a bit more about your organization and what you need at this moment in time. We can do an application assessment. Now, I've mentioned Access a couple of times and Excel and things like that. We have some scripts that we can actually run on your environment that will bring an output, which is effectively a list of applications that may be on-premise, they might be unsupported, they might be legacy technology, they might be a big risk to the organization from a kind of GDPR perspective, things that are kind of in access, and you'd rather it wasn't there because it's only there because it's business critical and you're worried it might break if you do something to it. So what we can do there is we can give you a prioritized roadmap of migrating those across to a new environment such as Power Platform, and also some proposals for how to do that. Most of that is something that we can do as I said, a follow-up pre-sales session. So if that's of interest to you, please let us know and we'll have a discussion offline. And a simple one, we are aware that you're probably watching this as a individual within your organization, and maybe some of it we've spoken about are things that you'd like other people to hear. Maybe they're budget holders or their senior management, etc. We'd love to come and meet them and talk to them about what we talked about today, and also give them some more scenarios, maybe based on your specific part of the public sector, show you some key use cases and understand a bit more again about how your organization is maybe struggling in some of these process areas, or want to know more about AI. So even if it is just a land and expand meet and greet with your colleagues, then we'd again love to get involved and have a further chat. So hopefully there's something to think about there, whether it's some workshops that are funded or some other ways in which we can interact with you to continue the conversation.